Lloyd, thank you for speaking with ET Now. Let's start with the obvious, the federal investigations into Goldman. Your firm stands accused of misleading investors. How do you think this investigation is going to end? Will it end with a settlement with the SEC?
At this point, we can't be sure. Obviously, it's not a very good thing for us, and we don't like being in a position that we're in where we're at odds with our regulator. But I just want to put it in perspective. We are at odds with a specific transaction involving only 2 institutional investors on a very, very narrow fact pattern. Obviously, we're in touch and in communication with our regulator on a host of issues, and we have a very good relationship with our regulator and an appreciation for our regulator. With respect to this issue, we have a disagreement on certain facts and how the law is applied, and it would be our intention to resolve this as soon as possible.
So are you saying that there might be a settlement that happens?
It's hard to predict because we are involved in a litigation. Now, it's a civil litigation. They've filed a claim. We owe them a response, and so it will have a path. Nothing will happen very, very quickly, but very often these things do get settled.
Now, Lloyd, if I'm an outsider, when I look at this particular Abacus deal, it does sound a little bizarre that Goldman would want to sell a product that its client, the one who wanted it to be set up in the first place, knew that it's going to fail. So how would you explain it to people outside who are not into this business?
No, Sri. Nobody knew it was going to fail, and the term failure implies somehow that the product was defective. What this product did was convey risk. To one side, it conveyed a positive risk on housing. Now, understand, housing is a very big market. It's the mortgage market in the U.S. One side was taking a position that correlated positively with housing, and one side was taking a position that correlated negatively with housing, because both were investors in the housing market, one way or the other. In fact, the security did what it was supposed to do. What happened was housing went down precipitously, and so the one that had a positive position to housing lost money, the one that had a negative position to housing made money. In fact, in that transaction, in order to expedite it, we took part of the positive position on housing, and we in fact lost a great deal of money in connection with that transaction. But it was not a failure of the product. What it did was it conveyed a kind of risk, and of course we all know what happened to housing prices in the U.S.
Now, Goldman obviously isn't the only Wall Street firm under this investigation. Almost all the top firms are now under the federal authorities' scrutiny. So would you say there's too much greed, at least from an outsider perspective, too much greed and too much deceit on Wall Street?
Well, again, I'm not sure exactly what is being investigated, but I've read the same stories you have, and I think people are looking at a market. Look, there was a very big upheaval. And in connection with that, regulators are appropriately looking and trying to see whether there was bad behavior here. Now, there may have been bad behavior, but really what may also be the case is that there was just market movements of unprecedented scope that couldn't have been anticipated, which sent big shocks and caused losses for some, gains for others. But the question of whether there was bad behavior is exactly that. It's a question, and that's what the point of the investigation is.
Now, Warren Buffett has spoken in support of Goldman, but he's also said that on Wall Street, people make money disproportionate to their talent. So do you believe that?
Well, I don't know what that means. I guess that's a hedge statement. I can either claim to be, you could either claim to be successful or talented, I guess, on that basis. But I'm not sure exactly what's meant by that.
Right.
I know that Warren Buffett is very, very talented, and he's made quite a lot of money. So I say in his case there's a pretty good correlation.
Right. After the Senate hearing, you said that Goldman would go through a rigorous process of self-examination. I know that started with the setting up of a review committee. So what's really on the table as far as the review goes?
I think what we're trying to do is acknowledge that whatever views we have of ourselves, there is a real detach between the views that some people have expressed about us. Now, we can spend a lot of our time deflecting, defending, parrying other comments, but and there are elements that we have to do. Clearly, we're going to defend our firm to the extent we think that there's some unfair charges being made, and so we have to deal with some of those legacy situations. But we also want to, as we always try to do, be introspective and try to make improvements if improvements are called for. So rather than spend all our time on the past, we'd like to get on our front foots and say, what in the comments and the criticisms is legitimate? How should we look at ourselves? And as you point out, we've put together a team that includes a lot of Goldman Sachs people to investigate it, but it's not going to be limited to Goldman Sachs insiders. We're going to get together focus groups, meet with our clients, meet with regulators, meet with alumni of the firm, outsiders, and just go through on a very microscopic basis all the elements, all the criticism, and see what's ripe for change.